This is a video ranking the 3 most challenging things I have accomplished in gaming.
Your hole, cunt!
Enter the Gungeon, Hollow Knight, and Celeste are the games, so let's get straight into it. Enter the Gungeon is a bullet hell game that is crazy hard. Lots of mental shit you have to do to get anywhere really. It's like speedrunners do. Instead of playing it level by level and dying over and over, you have to quit as soon as you die once. Instead of slowly building your skill through a variety of obstacles that you face through checkpoints, you have to rely on your mastery of the entire game, making every stage attention 100 and face-slammingly fun. Learning and mastering all the possible enemies and room layouts that could fuck you over, so after you gradually get all the pieces to craft the bullet that kills the past, and slam your way past the dragon, you're so good at the game that you absolutely destroy your past, aka the boss after the dragon. They are cool little fights that can't be rigged by the game's luck system. This is so because in every pass you'll have the same guns and perks. No insane loadouts for you, Bob. And it is this exact luck that eases the insane difficulty at least. If you're lucky, you could get all the easy bosses on that floor instead of the hard ones, and you could get a fucking shitload of good guns, like bing bing bing. However, even though all the paths are easy, seeing as I beat them all on my first try, except for evil King Ganon. So my second time around, I just loaded up on these and cheesed the fuck out of this fight. Baby, not even close. However, there is an ending after the dragon that is totally fucked. Woo! So, to get to the gunslinger, you have to go Paradox, kill Dragon, conquer Hell, and win a fight against all 3 of the Lich phases. Then you spawn as the Lich and have to do it all again, except this time you have to fight the double Lich, whom has a double that does double damage. Fucking hell. This was the most fun for me to complete, and the one I suffered from the least, so it's last place, baby. Still, it is the hardest thing I have done in Gungeon, and was wild as hell. Get it? Hell! Or not. I dropped the sandwich 3 times prior. I failed a Paradox run and 2 Lich runs. Then I won, and yeah, it was fun. It's worthy to mention that all 3 of these hardest achievements are in games that I absolutely adore. I wouldn't put up with something this hard or get good at a game to this degree if I didn't love it.
Like, a lot of people come into indie games trying to be like a big company. What those game companies do is create highly polished things that serve as large of an audience as possible. The way that you do that is by filing off all the bumps on something. If there's a sharp corner, you make sure that's not going to hurt anybody if they bump into it or whatever. That creation of this highly glossy commercial product is the opposite of making something personal.
Perfectly said, baby. The rough edges, it's what it's all about. I can appreciate the rough edges though. It is why I do this fucking shit. Like, come on, I've died so much.
They all have the indie soul per se, games made not for financial gain but rather to creatively express oneself. The devs animating and coding their hearts out to produce their works of art. And it's great to see the continuing advance of indie productions over the years, from Braid being the highest selling indie game of 2009 with over 10,000 copies sold, to the fortunate time of the 21st century, where creatively expressing yourself is more possible than ever now, with countless amazing indie titles exceeding platinum sales. The art design and music has opened up so many opportunities to creative people that otherwise isn't achievable in indie films. You would never be able to nail the look and sound of an animated film if you were working on an indie budget. Whereas the video game medium, at least from a 2D perspective, can create a visual masterpiece from 50,000. And this can be seen through Hollow Knight, which has set the bar impossibly high for Metroidvanias. Each boss in Hollow Knight is made so much better because of the simplistic animation, using anticipation to perfectly telegraph each attack, so you can react to the follow-through with pinpoint accuracy. These fights have so much movement and opportunities for a good player to just annihilate a boss. A library of so many kick-ass fights that nearly everyone will have a different list of their favorite ones, aka bosses. Now, back in my Hollow Knight video that I made in my other account, I already stated that Pure Vessel is my favorite fight, but the hardest one and most rewarding to complete, because of the pure insanity and pain it caused me, is A fight where you have to fight every Hollow Knight boss in the game before facing off against the master himself. Yeah, I love Hollow Knight, but holy shit, we really didn't have to fight every single boss. Like, do we really need to fight a mini-boss, the slowest fuck spirit bosses that no one cares about, or even the duplicate bosses, where we fight a harder version of the boss later on? Oh, this made me angry, matey. I guess that's a part of why it's so hard. By the time you get to the Radiance himself, you're so mentally exhausted and sweaty. So you often crumble under pressure and get fucking died. I guess that's with all these fights though, huh? Each of them are ridiculously long challenges that you have to face in one go. So that's why they're hard. But also the mechanics and skill you have to put into them make it double hard. I quit the 5th Pantheon when I was a keyboard user, only to come back 5 months later and beat the campaign on controller, relearning the game and making it all the way back to the 5th Pantheon. So I die another couple more times, totaling about 7. Then I beat him on my 8th with controller. Yeah, the rule with 2D platforming games, use a controller and it's much easier. If you shoot, use a keyboard. Also, worth a mention, this climbing is fucking insane. It literally made me want to die. It is hard. The limited amount of moves the players have in Meat Boy and Celeste creates a very natural sense of progression. Meat Boy has a jump and sprint, Madeline has a dash, jump, and climb. Instead of introducing the player to a complicated skill tree, the game sticks to its simple moveset and increases the difficulty by altering the environments and obstacles around the character.
So all these levels of introduction they go through everything, and once you've basically cleared out all the things you can do with Meat Boy, then you start introducing new mechanics. And with Meat Boy, it's not like Mario, where lots of the Mario games introduce new mechanics in forms of suits that change Mario's properties. And that's something that I wanted to avoid, and I wanted to make it really, really pure. Meat Boy never gets better or gets a power-up. It's the levels that change the mechanics. So right away you introduce saws, and they're usually static saws that just spin in place, and you have to avoid static saws. Then later, those same saws that you know how that they kill you and they know that they're round, those same saws then will start moving back and forth. So you got moving saws. And then, even later than that, you'll get these saws that are on these little spinners that act like windmills, and they go around in a circle. Now it's the same saw that you've jumped over a million times before, but it's coming at you in a different way. And it's just expanding on the basic mechanic and making it different and more enjoyable each time. As a designer, you want to explore each mechanic and make sure that it can be enjoyed at least 3 or 4 different ways. If it's only got one use and you can only get one use out of it, then there's pointless, because you need to be able to juice it. You gotta figure out new ways to use it.
These games are thus easily understood, while how to overcome all the new obstacles you're presented with still requires a lot of thought. It makes for a very fun game. When Meat Boy introduced a game like this, Celeste perfected it, improving upon basically everything that made Super Meat Boy the modern king of 2D platformers. Meat Boy has a cool art style that will never age. However, I think Celeste looks much more beautiful. Its changes to the environments are so much more distinct from stage to stage, much like its changes to the obstacles from chapter to chapter. Other than keys, rockets and portals, and magnets, Meat Boy introduces its changes to the environment mainly through variations of saws: stationary, spinning, moving. On the other hand, Celeste introduces a great deal more, all of which have a much higher effect on gameplay, starting with springs, traffic lights, crystals, star blocks, wind, red bubbles, angry blocks, feathers, the list goes on and on. Because of this, each new area of Celeste can maintain its simple moveset while changing the gameplay massively. That's another thing. Celeste's moveset can be manipulated so much more than the mere simpleness of Meat Boy's jump and sprint. It can do so many crazy things like super wave dashing. Also, I don't like how Meat Boy slides down walls. Jumping off walls feels kind of awkward, especially going down walls. But the music in Meat Boy is just as much of a slam dunk, if not more. And there is one thing, now that I think of it, that Meat Boy has over Celeste: the 1 million death recap after you finish a stage. There are probably more things because Meat Boy is so awesome, but the recap, it is just the best thing to watch ever. It's 10 out of 10. This is gonna look great. No, race to the finish. Meat Boys, run! Run, meat boys! Roof hoppers, let's go! We're ahead of the group, we've got this. It's a speed run! We gotta make this. We got a meat boy down. Two in the lead. Jumping. Shit, one's going down. We got this, boys. Someone's on the roof. We fucked it. Completely fucked it. Got two boys going at it. Boys. Oh. One boy. Can he make it? All of this leads to the final farewell chapter of Celeste. They introduce mechanics wave dashing and super wall jumping, as well as the obstacles, jellyfish parachute and blowfish, are justifiably the hardest things to learn the timing and physics of. But once you get it, you will feel like a king. It's an ending chapter that really pushes the mechanics of the game to the limit, adding to how the final stage combines everything difficult in the farewell chapter with every obstacle that came before. And it's fucked. Referring to exactly the last stage, aka the last round, I guess, of the farewell chapter, is fucked. I will count my deaths in post, but yeah, it's a lot. And was certainly the most rage-inducing. Like, you can see ahead in retrospect, but you kind of have to do it to know how things are gonna go down. So instead, you're just like, chop my dick off already, you know? Every time you try to get where you died last, you do worse a bucket load of times, until you get there and barely improve because you're not familiar with what's ahead. So it's very mentally taxing as you remember this labyrinth fucked path and scream your way to victory. Like, if you look closely at my death compilation, you will notice I never quite reached where I died last. Or you'll find out from first-hand experience. By playing this game yourself, it may have not been worth it this time. I'm just joking, every challenge is a good challenge. Each ending found in Celeste's climaxes to their stories have very powerful and beautiful last stages that conclude their segments of the story wonderfully. The strawberries, hearts and cassette tapes along with all the other massive accomplishments are also satisfying to complete because of their visual milestone presentation. It makes the entire head-smashing journey worth it to see this card packed with stickers, and the farewell one. Unless we're talking the Moonberry. That is just too much, man. The last half round is hard enough. So hopefully you had a better time than me completing the final farewell stage. Play all these games immediately, okay? This is another insane thing you can do in Celeste, since this game is just packed to the brim with awesome challenges. Most indie devs are so non-profit that they just keep adding to their already great games. DLC after DLC, it's all about the art over commerce, which I love. And if you think I spoiled the games, okay I guess, but the real joy comes from experiencing it firsthand. Like, if you think me talking about the games is enough, no. Go do it yourself and support some awesome devs. Thanks for watching, hardcore gamers. Love you all. Keep it up.
Exquisite!